Welcome to Overtime on Inferno, your weekly roundup of all the biggest stories in CSGO, quicker than we figure out how to use Twitter Spaces. Quick reminder, rate and reviews at the end of the episode. I'm Logan. Joining me in a little bit will be Aizyesque. On today's episode, we talk about the beginning rounds of the major, we talk about Fnatic Smooya, and we talk about the never-ending news cycle of Hunden. Roll the intro. Quick disclaimer before you listen or watch the rest of this episode. This episode was broadcast live on Twitter Spaces on our Twitter account at ReadTLDR. You might notice that some of the audio is odd. You might notice hearing some echoes in the background. This was our first time going through Twitter Spaces. We had a decent amount of technical difficulty issues. We're hoping to get those sorted out for the next time, but regardless, the podcast. Shall we begin? We have a lot of topics this week.
Hell yeah.
All right, we're getting straight into it. Welcome everybody to our major preview episode. We've got the matches out for contenders. Contenders versus the challenger level.
Challenges, yeah.
The challengers. So there's some good matches in here. There's some
the first matchup of the major is absolutely massive.
The Copenhagen Flames Astralis one?
Copenhagen Flames Astralis is huge. It's such a banger matchup.
I'm actually super excited for it. Copenhagen Flames have been really good recently, and
yeah,
I think that if they can continue form, which I think is likely, considering it wasn't that long ago that we saw them with like decently good form to begin with, right?
Yeah,
that they're able to just kind of get stuff going.
Well, it's also it's a Danish it's a Danish derby for the best team. Like, which one of you gets to be the best team in Denmark?
Are we forgetting that Heroic exists?
Who?
Okay.
I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Actually, at this point, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. I've never heard of this team before. Who are Heroic?
We'll talk about them later.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Ents Godsent.
Ents Godsent's kind of fun. I think FaZe Spirit is super fun as well, because neither of those teams, FaZe are the team that used to have no game plan, and Spirit are the team who currently have no game plan. It's great. Spirit are Spirit are maniacs. Yeah.
It's just constant rush B. There won't be any other plans.
You have to remember as well, Spirit is the spirit, for the terrible pun. The spirit of Vega Squadron lives on within them with Chopper and Mia, and Vega Squadron destroyed FaZe in the major cycle that one time. So it's pretty huge.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, so it's now it's FaZe versus the spirit of Vega Squadron in the first major for 2 years. That's a huge matchup. He said, "Are you still here?" Yep.
Yeah, no. Audio just started going through my phone instead of my headphones. I don't know why.
Yeah, mine's going through my phone, which isn't great, but what are you going to do?
It's fine. Welcome to technical difficulties for the first time of us doing this.
Technical difficulties on Inferno.
I'm just going to rename the podcast this week Technical Difficulties on Inferno. It's going to be its own thing. I'm going to remake the logo for this week. Okay. Big VP, I think, is the most boring matchup here.
I think the most boring matchup is Heroic versus Tyloo.
I didn't see that one.
Come on, bro. Who wants to watch Heroic versus Tyloo? I love Tyloo, but there's just Heroic never lose to underdogs. They just don't. And Tyloo are massive underdogs. It's going to be so boring. I will be more than happy to eat my words if it goes a different way, but there's just no way on earth Tyloo don't lose to Heroic, unfortunately.
I really want to see Tyloo win. But
so do I.
Tyloo's going to take 6 to 10 rounds off of Heroic, regardless of what map it is. And those 6 to 10 rounds are going to be the worst rounds Heroic has ever lost.
I don't even think they'll get 6. I think it's a 16-5 or 16-4.
This is unfortunate, man. 16-4?
Bro, like, have you? I mean, obviously nobody's watched Tyloo in a while except like Blair, but there's no way Tyloo get more than 5 rounds off heroic. I just don't like unless it's I don't know unless it's some map that heroic don't play.
I
Maybe
mean,
if it's ancient or something, I could see Tyloo doing something weird and getting like 8 rounds. But heroic don't lose to underdogs. They just don't. They're really reliable at beating bad teams.
yeah, but like, I don't know, man. Something about like 4 or 5 years ago, Asian CS coming into the major and just absolutely wrecking teams that shouldn't have gotten wrecked by them. That just hits different, man.
It does, but unfortunately, Heroic are not the team that are going to get wrecked. Now, when they're 0-1 and they come up against like either Big or VP or an Ent or a Godsent, maybe there's some more, or maybe like a Fate, like, let's say FaZe lose their first game to Spirit and they have to play Tyloo.
Yo,
Now we're
FaZe
talking.
Tyloo? That's a
Now we're
banger right
talking.
there.
Yeah, now we're talking. But Heroic won't lose to Tyloo, unfortunately. Mouse Sharks should be pretty boring, but then Mouse Sports are so hit and miss that they could end up losing to Sharks. I quite like Sharks, but they just don't have enough firepower. They have Lucalzi, who's actually good, and then the rest of them are a bit hit and miss at best.
I mean, in reality, Mouse is going to lose because they have a terrible new logo. And I know this is an unpopular opinion. I don't really care.
Their logo's good. Their old one was awful, and now it's fine.
I don't care. It doesn't matter if the old one was bad. This one's worse.
It's not
It
worse.
just looks like a flipping heart, man.
If
It literally looks like a heart. Tell me it doesn't.
it doesn't look like a heart. It
It
looks
looks
like a
like a heart.
mouse.
It looks like a heart they shittily cut out the middle of.
No, it looks like a. Their new logo is fine. It's perfectly fine.
Why'd they have to rebrand Perfection, man?
It's not. It was absolutely not perfection.
Just perfect.
Not perfect at
I'm
all.
ex- I'm excited about the Renegades Movistar Riders match.
I.
I
It's
think it's
fun that
like
one of those teams will be 1-0. Actually, watching the game, I'm not that bothered about. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's quite interesting because both teams are essentially upset teams, and it'd
yeah.
be interesting to know which one is better. Because Renegades are pretty damn good at beating the teams around them in their region. Like they almost never lose to the teams around them. But
Mm-hmm.
are Movistar significantly better than Order and Avant? I think they probably are. So it'd be interesting to see how Renegades transfer that to a different region and whether or not that works. But also, we've only seen, or I've only seen Movistar play against genuinely decent teams and look good in those games. So how much of their ability to play well is based on sorts of anti-stratting and being like an anti-meta team in a sense, and how much of that is them actually being a very solid team that can beat? Because if they can convincingly beat Renegades and then run it close with the big teams and occasionally beat them, you've got a genuinely good team there. So if Movistar comfortably beat Renegades, they put themselves in a really good spot because they've already shown they can hang with the big boys. So if you can then beat the teams below you, you are one of the big boys.
Yeah. I don't know why, but when I brought this game up in my head, this was Copenhagen Flames versus Renegades. But this, all the statements you just said still stand.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit. I'm more excited. I don't know. I'm kind of excited for Movistar because of like they don't ever seem to get blown out even by good teams. And
Yeah, it always seems they always seem like rather close matches.
yeah,
Not extremely close, but it always seems they get their share of rounds and they feel good about the rounds they've gotten. It's never like 16-4, 16-5s.
and they've proven that they can be pretty clutch when it matters as well because
Yeah.
they won the tiebreakers, they won games in overtime, they won games like 16-13. Like in the important rounds, they do seem to hold their composure, which is a really big thing if you're looking for an upset. Because how many times do you see the upset team like fall off in the last couple of rounds, that go really far, and then when the pressure's on, the better team just sort of show. I mean, you look at the CIS RMR, and the amount of times Gambit or Na'Vi were in trouble and just won because when the pressure was on, they know how to handle that. And learning to deal with that pressure, obviously, is going to be different on LAN, but learning to deal with that pressure and thriving under it is a really good sign for if you're looking to upset a big team, because you have to hold your nerve in those big moments against the best players in the world. So I'm quite high on Movistar for that reason. And I if they can beat Renegades 16-10, 16-11, I'll be I'm pretty certain they can get out of this and into the major like proper.
All right, so let's turn the corner a little bit. Let's talk about that. So, out of this stage of 16 teams competing in the best system known to humankind, the Swiss system,
We love Swiss
uh,
system.
Swiss system is just so much better than round robin and everything else. So, 16 teams going into the Swiss system, you got to get, what is it, 3 wins to get out? I believe that's
Yep.
correct. So, you can go 3-0, 3-1, 3-2. So, you get
Yep.
3 wins to get out. So, it'll bring us the first 8 teams that get out. So, who do we think the first 8 teams that are going to be able to get out are?
So I think both Ents and Godsent might make it. I
Okay.
think Virtus Pro, Movistar, Heroic, Astralis, Team Spirit, and FaZe Clan. I
Were you
think.
counting? I'm legitimately asking
Yeah,
because I stopped counting.
yeah, that was 8.
Okay.
Which
Uh,
which means missing out would be Copenhagen Flames, Entropic, Pain, Big, Renegades, Tyloo, and Mouse and Sharks.
I saw you have physical pain in your face when you said Pain Gaming.
Man, I really want Pain to be good, but I just don't think they have. I think they're going to have firepower issues against better teams. They have 2 or 3 good players, but like I'm not convinced that like Nekis, PKL, and Hards Out can really like kick it at this level. Big Uzira, I think definitely can. Safe obviously can. But the other 3, I do have concerns on a firepower level at this sort of at this level of play.
Yeah. So I'm thinking who's making it out. I'm thinking Astralis is making it out. I'm thinking
Yeah,
Copenhagen
probably.
Flames is making it out. I'm thinking Ents is making it out. I have to start counting now because I'm gonna get to the point where I forget how to do numbers. I think Spirit's gonna make it out. I think I think Mouse is gonna make it out. I think VP is gonna make it out. I think one of Movistar or Renegades will make it out, but not both. And I couldn't tell you which one until after the first match. It's legitimately who looks better in this first match that's going to get to the 1-0 lead to start and have a little bit more room to play with.
I think Movistar are the better team. I quite like Renegades, but I think Movistar are actually good.
I think FaZe is going to make it, and I think
Yep,
Entropic
I
is
do.
going to make it. I think Big's going to miss out. I
Yeah,
don't know
I
why.
the thing I always think about Big is there's Big are a good team, but you never have any faith that they're gonna like. They're consistent, but they're like consistently 7 out of 10. Um, and when everyone, I mean, I guess the truth is they do tend to have periods of the year where they go really really hard, and they I don't know what they do, they boot camp or they just come up with some new stuff and they absolutely destroy people. So maybe they're saving that all for the major. But Gade instead of Jantares, I mean, I love Gade, but Jantares was your sort of pop off, like he might carry a game factor. And I guess they now have that in Tabson now that he's not in game leading, but it is a little
Yeah.
bit of a firepower downgrade, and you're gonna need to upset somebody, I think. I guess what I will say for Big is they are probably going to beat the more inconsistent teams a lot of the time. So there is a good chance they get out of this stage, but I kind of hope they don't, because I don't want to see Big play a best of 3 like in the playoffs against Na'Vi. I know this is the qualifier stage, but like if they got through and then they got through again, like you don't want to watch Big in the best of 3s because you kind of know what their result's going to be before they play in pretty much every game, which you can't say for some of these other teams. I have no idea how good FaZe Clan are, and for some reason, I just think they're going to make it to the semi-finals. So I have to think they're going to. But it's to me, it's like as likely that they go out in this stage as they make it like deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you and I talked about last week that FaZe is either going to make it to the finals or go 0-3, and there's no in between.
Yeah. We both had Mouse missing. Did we both have Mouse missing out?
No, I believe I said Mouse. And if I didn't, then I'd like to say Mouse. I think Mouse
really
makes it. I just think it's going to be like a 3-2 decider towards the end.
I've got a feeling they're going to lose a 3-2 decider.
I mean, here's the thing. They'll win over Sharks, right? And
yeah.
Then the problem is going to be after that. The problem is definitely going to be the post-win of Sharks. They'll start out 1-0.
They're going to win to Sharks and lose to Movistar, I reckon. I think that's going to be what happens. And they're going to somehow end up in a decider game against either FaZe or Spirit. That's my diagnosis. And they're going to lose to either of those teams.
Ooh. I think it's more likely they end up against Big just because of luck. And it's
I think Big would crush Mouse though.
It depends on the day of the week, and I don't even mean to sound like a dick saying that. I just really think it depends on the day of the week.
I don't know. I cannot see a world.
Astrology. While you gotta look at the astrology, the phases of the moon, man.
I do not see a world where Mouse Sports don't get like boa constricted by Big. Bigger will suffocate Mouse. Mouse are like so loose with their gameplay. Like there's nothing tight and rehearsed about what Mouse do. And Big will pick that apart. They will find the smallest hole in your defense and they will like crank it open. That's what Big do. They are suffocating. They're oppressive. But if you're like somewhat tight of rehearse, or you can just outshoot them like some of the better teams can, then you can sort of get out of it. But Mouse don't have that much firepower. Okay, they have Rops. Okay, they have Frozen. 50% of the time they have Beamers. Dexter, I don't get. And Acor is kind of... Yeah, I don't really want to talk about Acor. He's a frustrating player to watch because he could be so good and he just hasn't been on Mouse. And I think that's going to be a big problem. All of the best teams in the world, all of the best players in the world are AWPers. Mm-hmm. And all the best teams have really good AWPers. And Mouse's weak point is their AWPer. Like, they should get bullied by... Like, if they come up against VP, do you think James going to, like, miss? Like, VP... Like, James going to collect free kills all day on Mouse. Like, Searson's going to collect kills all day on, like, they're just going to collect these free kills on the riflers because that's what the AWP does at the moment. It's like, it's the best gun in the game by a mile at the moment. And Mouse's weak point is their AWPer. Like, that is such a bad thing. Like, if they come up against Spirit in a decider match, how do you stop Dexter?
You don't. That's the
exactly.
Thing is, like, you just look through all these teams, right? And I can't speak a huge amount for Sharks because I haven't watched a huge amount of Sharks. But you go through these teams, other than Astralis and Sharks, wow. Including Astralis now, each of these teams has a very defined, very decent AWPer.
Godsent don't actually. Godsent might be a team who could lose to Mouse because they don't have that sort of AWPer advantage.
Who's AWPing for them? I could have sworn there was like an actual AWPing for them.
You can ask Godsent who's AWPing for them, and their answer will be the exact same as mine. They have no idea. I think it's supposed to be Dumao, but I have seen every single member of this team AWP. I've seen them have 4 different AWPers in the same map once. I love this team. They're insane. You know what you just said about it depending on the, like, you have to, like, check the stars and you have to read your tarot cards. That's how Godsent decide round by round who's AWPing. So, you're an Aquarius, you can AWP this round. Oh no, this is a Leo kind of round. It's just like, Taco fancies AWP. All right, Taco's gonna AWP. Like, Phelps wants to AWP. Yeah, sure. You're our best player. Of course you can AWP. Bartin wants to AWP. Yeah, sure. Even though you've got like a 60% headshot rate. Yeah, sure. You just start AWPing, bro. It's fine. It's just
insane.
Like,
they have a they have a spinner wheel and they have all the players' names on it, and they just spin it before the round and go, great, okay, talk us up right now.
One of my favorite games is when you see Godsent save a double AWP and you try and guess who the second AWP is going to be. And
Don't
then
you
if you can
guess who
guess
the
that,
first op
you
is gonna be?
well, it's usually whoever already had one. Sometimes it's not. I don't know. Maybe sometimes they go AWPs one round, they just drop to somebody else, and then save a second AWP that goes to somebody else. It's great fun. I love this team. It's like pure like Brazilian flair. They just
All right.
make it up as they go along.
All right, I got one more point regarding the major, and then we have to move
Right.
on to the million of non-major related things.
Yeah.
Um, Adren will not be coaching Liquid during the major.
Yeah.
Um, his wife's having a kid, so he's going to do that. Apparently, he's going to be doing his normal stuff in a like normal coaching, like pre-match stuff. He just won't be there with the players, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, but that does mean we get Coach Yoka Steve, which this just makes me extremely excited for Liquid VoiceCom videos. Because
Uh,
you know that Steve's just going to be cracking jokes the entire time.
I really don't know much about Liquid Steve. Other than, like, I hope his nickname is Liquid Steve because that's a cool nickname for a start. But like, I
Yeah.
don't really know who he is.
So
So
he originally was the coach for the Team Curse League of Legends roster. Okay.
yeah,
Then Curse got bought out by Liquid, and he worked with the Liquid League roster for like 5 minutes. And then when Liquid went into Counter Strike, he became the manager, and he's been the manager ever since. So he's around constantly. It's not like he's brand new to the game and like he's just getting thrown in or something like that. He is relatively experienced. And in reality, I think that with Fallen on the team, they don't need somebody like helping very much strat behind them. It's very much a mental thing behind them.
yeah.
And I just kind of like reset and cracking jokes and that kind of stuff. I think that's why Dren works so well because we've talked about this probably a million times before, but I don't think either of us think that Adren is like the super tactical. Like we don't think he's like a Blade or a Hunden or something like that. That's like
I I think he probably does a decent amount when it comes to tactics.
I
Though I
think
mean,
he
he was an in-game
yeah
leader and he was a good one.
yeah no I'm sure he does tactics and stuff, but just personality wise, it's like he's not going to be Sonic. Like
No,
he's
that's
not.
you're fine.
But I don't think that that's what this team needs. So I don't think this is going to affect it that much. I just really want to bring up the fact that we get Coach Yoka Steve and that the video the voicecom videos are going to be hilarious. That's really
Well,
the
we'll
main
see.
point. I mean, if they're winning things, the voicecom videos will be great.
Yeah, I rarely listen to those voice com videos because I don't know, especially when it's Americans. I don't want to hear Americans being happy.
Mm-hmm. I guess so. I mean, there's Canadians.
I look. I'm not going to
Canadian.
offend you by saying that's the same thing, but that's the same thing.
You know what? I'm not Canadian, so we take
I,
that.
and
You know,
and Canadians wouldn't mind because they're just
no,
too nice to care.
love Canadians. All right, let's. We have a very large list of non-major related things because we had
Hell yeah.
the post-major roster move happen pre-major for everyone who didn't make the major.
Yeah.
Um, so let's first talk about your favorite British player, Smooya, um,
Yeah.
who's trialing on Fnatic for 3 months now.
I think it really says a lot about Smooya that he's on a free transfer and they're still taking him on a trial. It really says a lot because, like, he's obviously really decent, and he smurfs on like tier 2 all the time. But tier 1, he's a good player, um, and yeah, I mean, there's obviously something going on behind the scenes if he keeps getting cut from teams that he's the best player of.
So I have an important question for you.
Yep.
How do you feel now that there is a British team that's not named Endpoint that theoretically could win like a game?
I was worried where you were going. I was like, theoretically they could win, and I was like, hang on, win
No,
what?
just
What
a
it,
game, end game.
Even that's a stretch. I mean, sure. I mean, I like Mezzi. He's a fellow West Midlander, so it's pretty nice.
Okay. Okay.
You know, Alex is like it's basically not that like British anyway because
Because
Alex is
Alex
only
is
half
French.
English.
Isn't
Although,
Alex like French at this point?
see, I was sort of on that sort of train that if he's on a French team and he speaks French, you know, how English can you be? And then at the face it, oh no, it was at ECS I think. He came out in the grand final wrapped in an ink like a St George's flag, and I was like, no Frenchman would be seen dead near an English flag. Like, and it wasn't a British flag; it was an English flag, and that made me respect him because Great Britain is a myth like designed by Americans.
No, okay, so Top Gear said it best once for me is that you become English from the surrounding territories when you've done something good. Otherwise, you are that territory. So if you're Scottish and you've invented something awesome, you're now English. But if you
See, I
haven't
don't even
done
think
anything
that.
great,
Like, I don't care. Like, if you're Scottish, you're Scottish. You're not. You aren't the same as me. Like, your achievements are Scotland's achievements. Andy Murray winning Wimbledon. A, I don't care because it's tennis anyway. But B, he isn't English. He's Scottish. Like, I don't want. I don't. We don't need to like colonize other people's achievements. We've already done enough of that.
yeah, you're not wrong there.
No, like I. But Alex is like he was wearing an English flag. To me, that's definitive.
All right, so in a move that absolutely nobody ever saw coming, Flit and Almazer have been benched from Forza. Um,
Yeah, pretty sure Flit's going to VP, as we
we
said
think Flit's
before.
Yeah, and we think it's just we said Sanji right to Forza, right? That we were
Yeah, that'd be
that's
interesting. But
the
I think
thought
Fours have
process.
signed two players. Fours have signed Norvi and Fierce from Singularity. I saw today. I
Okay,
don't know who they
maybe they
are.
won't get Sanji. Phase Sanji.
Face
Not that they
Sanji.
need
I don't
more.
know.
Not, not that
I
they
don't know
need
where he
more
could go.
support players.
Mouse or something.
Not that they need more support players.
Well, they need something. I don't know what they need, but they need something.
His name is Torzi. He currently plays for Mouse Academy.
Yeah, well, quite.
Um, FPX have removed Devil Walk, for
So
at least
this sounds like quite a small thing, Devil Walk leaving
no, it's not.
FPX. But I actually think this is pretty big. Like he
No, this is
was
huge.
yeah, so FPX, no chance, whatever you want to call that sort of line, has had a bunch of different players come in. They changed in-game leader. They bought in Emmy for a bit, and they were still good. And I remember at the time, Devil Walk tweeting something like, it's almost like we have a system that you can fit an IGL into, and that's why it's so good. And FPX have always overperformed their own talent. Or they just constantly like this team does not have loads of talent, and they were consistently around the top 10, which is,
Mhm.
I mean, that's pretty damn impressive. And if they were able to swap the in-game leader and still do the same thing, Devil Walk must be a good coach. I know, like, it's difficult to rate coaches because we don't know exactly what goes on, but he has to be a good coach. Like, this team has changed in-game leader. He's coming up with this, or supposedly he has this system that you can plug and play different players into, and they still like sit around the top 10 no matter like how like no matter the talent level. Almost like they're still a decent team.
Mm.
To me, Devil Walk leaving FPX was pretty surprising, and I think he's probably one of the best coaches in the world. I mean, it's difficult to tell, but he seems like one of the best coaches in the world from an outsider's perspective. I think
I
this is
mean,
actually pretty big.
I would agree with that. I think that Devil Walk has shown like a million times now that no matter what the team is, that the team will consistently do well, and there's got to be some sort of actual. There's got to be something behind that, right? It can't just be, oh look, the
Yeah,
team's doing well. Look at these players; they're doing great. There's got to be some sort of common ground among them, and that's Devil Walk is a very good coach. Obviously, second best coach in the world, not
I
the first. Um,
I honestly think Astralis could do worse than pick up Devil Walk now.
They could do worse.
If Sonic leaves, they
If Sonic leaves, I
should
think
definitely
they.
go towards Devil Walk, and I'd think that seems like a smart decision.
You know what a team that's looking for a coach is that could pick up Devil Walk?
Go on.
Those heroic guys.
Well, yeah. I mean, also heroic. Like either of those teams, I think Devil. I bet
Yeah.
I could see Sonic going to heroic and then Devil Walk going to
I could
Astralis.
I could see Devil Walk going to literally whatever team he wants. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure they
I
just have
really think his value should be incredibly high right now.
I agree. Speaking of Astralis, Zip has signed until 2025, leading us back into the decision of why long esport contract.
There's a lot of things that don't make sense about this, and the biggest one is that until three
Like
days ago,
3 days ago, yeah,
everyone thought Zipnix was leaving. Like I talked about it on here, I talked about it in public. Like everyone thought Zipnix was leaving, and then just all of a sudden he signed a 4-year contract. He must be making a fucking wedge. Like he
yeah,
must be
no, for
making a
sure.
shit ton of money. Like this move doesn't seem to make that much sense for anyone. Like
No,
he's
no, because he hasn't been playing the
Astralis are
same way.
paying
I mean,
Astralis are paying out of the nose for a 26-year-old who is he's a glue player for players better than him, which they don't currently have. He's For him, he's like, okay, it makes financial sense for him and he gets to like stay in the country, which is nice. But like he could have tested his value elsewhere. Like, I mean, Complexity are looking for players. We'll get onto that. Um, so like he could have tested his value elsewhere, and I know for a fact Complexity pay well. So unless Astralis are matching that, which I mean they might be, but
yeah,
it's surprising. Like he could have probably made more money somewhere else, and like he is the wrong side of 25. And I know, like, oh, age doesn't matter in esports, whatever you want to say. But if he does start declining, all it's going to do is like sort of ruin his legacy a little bit. Like,
yeah.
unless Astralis win this major, which would be, I mean, I can't see it happening. But if
No,
they
I
did,
can't
then
either.
maybe you'd be like, okay, fair enough. I can see why you've done this. It's a fairy tale. But it seems driven by the heart instead of the head of this move.
Yeah, I think this is a really good signing for Zipnix. I think this. I think we talked about this with Rez, right? When Rez signed the 5-year deal, um, that this is a really good signing. That Zip now has 100% job security unless they kick him, right? That he has a contract until 2025. All of the good adulting parts of this, right? I think it's a really stupid contract for Astralis.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I just don't think that they're thinking. They're not using their brain. As you said, they're using their heart, not their brain.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
that's
think
my read on it at least. I mean, I could be
no,
completely wrong, but
I I agree. And the other thing I think for Zip is that like he has been here, and there's been like he gets to stay in the exact same place. He gets to stay in the same style of life. He stays in Copenhagen or wherever he lives in Denmark, right? He can stay. He can keep everything the same. So if he enjoys the way life is currently going, he can just keep going on that until 2025, right?
yeah,
Until he gets kicked, right? He doesn't need to change anything. Going to complexity, that's a change.
yeah,
Going to phase, as we had talked about previously, of like him going to phase, that's a change.
yeah,
Those are both like definite changes.
yeah.
So
It's a safe move for Zip.
yeah, and I can't blame Zip for doing the safe move.
No,
There's literally
I mean
nothing
it
that they
makes
can
more
do.
sense for Zipnix than it does for Astralis, but I just feel so bad for Bubsky, dude.
I was gonna say, let's go to point number 2 on stupid moves Astralis has made. Glaive is back for the major, and Bubsky is out.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last week, but like now you've bought now Zipnix is staying, Glaive is staying. I mean, maybe the other two now
I
think,
mean,
okay, we
Lucky
might
is
stay.
staying.
And now you've just signed Bubsky, fucked him around for a year and a half, and then you're going to be like, oh yeah, by the way, we're keeping the original 5. Sorry, you're out. It's like, the poor guy just cannot catch a break. Like, clearly Glaive never really wanted him that much. I mean, he's always been quite disparaging about him. Like, and it's a bit like like negging Bubsky. Like, oh, you don't really. Oh yeah, you're too aggressive for this team. Like, tell him he's bad, so he doesn't think he's worth more than this. Like it's like quite a manipulative thing, but it's a thing. Like it's like a tactic, quote unquote tactic that like employers will use. Like they tell their employees that they're not actually that good, so they don't realize that they could leave and get like a better job, more money elsewhere. Botsky can do better than being Astralis' bitch.
I agree.
I just hope he agrees.
I see. I feel like I think we have talked about this. I think somewhere along the line there was some sort of news or something that was like Bubsky doesn't really like Counter Strike. He just happens to be good at it. I don't remember.
I've heard that rumor, but I have no idea if it's true.
No, I have no idea where it came from. I have no idea where I heard it. But let's pretend I know where it came from and I know it's true.
Yeah,
Um, but like if that's true, and if Astralis is kind of just seeing that and going, yeah, no, he just doesn't. He's good at the game, but he doesn't have any passion for it. And it's like winning for him is just like going to work normally, right? It's not like a big deal. It's like I understand it then, but if none of that's true, which again we have no clue whether it's true or not, if none of it's true, right, then why aren't you playing him? He's one of the better riflers that you have. He's got to be an upgrade, right?
he's he hasn't been great on Astralis, but he was
No.
very good on Mad Lions. I think it's like a role issue. But what I find very strange is that Glaive said he's too aggressive, and he was not that aggressive on Mad Lions, if I remember rightly. The reason I remember this so vividly is because I'm sure his bio used to be professional beta for Mad Lions. Um,
If it was, that's fantastic.
I'm sure it
I
was,
think,
and he was like, I'm a beta. He was quite passive, or he was a lurker. He would make plays, but he wasn't like overtly aggressive the way a Glaive always seems to suggest he is. So that just seems strange to me. But I just feel so bad for the guy. If you think you're going to get on Astralis once everyone leaves, and then they just all stay. Like, what are you supposed to do?
yeah. All right, let's talk about North America for like 6 seconds. Uh, Party Astronauts beat Extra Salt in ESEA Premier Finals, which means Party Astronauts are now in Pro League and Extra Salt is not.
Yeah, this is so bad for Extra Salt. Like, really bad. Like, you spend the entire year, or the entire year and a half, like, destroying NA, and then you miss out on a major spot and miss out on Pro League because you lose, like, 2 series. It's so bad for Extra Salt. Like, it's a team that's quite clearly the best team from NA, and they've just sort of hit a bad patch
Yeah,
of form at the absolute wrong time.
yeah, it's rough. It's actually like really really rough because you want them to have considerably better form. Like we know they're a better team than Party Astronauts. I think that this is like one of those 9 out of 10 times you run a play in football and it works. American football, obviously.
Yeah,
You run a play in American football and it works, but like that 1 out of 10 time, you don't make it.
yeah.
This is that 1 out of 10 time. It's like you run this match 10 times, Extra Salt wins 9 out of 10 times.
It's that
The
one out
one
of ten
time,
times has happened in two back-to-back important times.
well, this is this time period is
Yeah,
the 1 out of 10 time, right? Because it was Fang that wasn't performing, and it's not like a bad wasn't performing. It's just like he was having an off week or whatever. It's
yeah,
just like they happen every once in a while, and you sure as hell hope that they're not going to happen during your most two important games in the year, right? Like at least a consolation prize of not making the majors, you're making Pro League, but you miss out on Pro League. I read somewhere that they technically still have a way to get into Pro League, but
right.
it's not fun.
No, no. I mean, it's certainly not a party like being party astronauts. It's not fun. It's standing in the corner saying they don't know that I didn't go to the major.
What a great meme.
It's a good meme. I don't really get it, which makes it even better.
I'm gonna skip over the next one on our list, and we'll come back
All
to
right.
it.
Okay.
Extremum doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think I
Not that
wrote in
they,
the newsletter. Extremum have benched their whole roster, or as other teams see it, Extremum have benched B and Tet and Jacame
yeah,
because no, like we've all seen Azza, he's okay. We've all seen Gratisfaction, he's kind of bad. We've all seen
Liaz.
Liaz. Actually, I do rate Liaz. I do think Liaz is decent, and I think Liaz should probably go to one of the NA teams.
Wait,
I think.
what if he went to Renegades and just went back to his old team?
I mean, maybe, but that's kind of boring. Like, I want to see him. I want to like genuinely. If EG want to stay an American team or like an English speaking team or whatever, they don't. What if they don't want to get Spellan, which they almost certainly shouldn't. Um, they should probably pick up Liaz because he's really talented. Um, he can play multiple different roles, but he's kind of best as a clutch player. He's very, very composed in a clutch, very calm player. Mechanically, he's pretty strong, and he's pretty versatile. Like he's fitting different roles on that team at different times. On Renegades, he was very much a star player, and then he joined 100 Thieves and later became Extremum and was a lot more of a role player. And he's been pretty strong at both. I do rate Liaz. Being Tet, I think I tweeted out that him going to Complexity sounds like a terrible idea, but I'm pretty sure it's going to, it just sounds like the sort of thing that would happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Being Tet to Complexity, oh yeah, like of course he is. Jacame has had a strange career, and I'm not sure how. I'm not sure how much he'll want to move, like to a top European team and really like push himself at this point, because he had that opportunity and he went to Nordavind and then back to Extremum. I think he probably wants to just sort of chill out and take it easy, which he's well within his right to do. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure who picks up Jacame.
I mean, he might go back to the Scandinavias, right? Because
Yeah.
the whole thing with Nordavent, it wasn't Nordavent, it was Apex.
Sorry.
Um,
Yes, Apex. Yeah.
the whole thing with Apex was like he wanted to make the Norwegian scene good again, right? That they've been lacking for a while. The only two players they realistically had were Jacob and Rain, and when your top two players from a region are Jacob and Rain, and the only other player you can think about the top of your head is Rubino, you probably
Croman.
need to.
Remember
Sorry, that's
Croman?
a. I'm not sure you're helping my point here. I'm not sure you're helping their point.
Croman
Um,
was all right.
point being
There's
is
Hulzerk as well. Hulzerk's pretty good.
there the players that have come out of the Norwegian region are just not as good as the players around it, right? When you're bordered right by Denmark and Sweden, which although Sweden's not producing a huge amount of major talent right now, historically fantastic. Denmark seems to constantly be finding new players, right? There's something going on that's a little weird in Norway. So I like the fact that Jacob went back there to do it, and I kind of hope he does it again, but just doesn't leave in a kind of scummy way,
Yeah.
because there was a whole situation revolving around him leaving. Um. All right. So last week, I believe we talked about the fact that the twins were benched from Zero Zero Nation.
Yeah.
Um, Fur has joined Zero Zero Nation
Yeah.
in probably, in my opinion, the most odd move of the year.
Um,
I I
I
don't.
don't know. Like, Fur kind of makes sense in some sense. Like, uh, he's clearly a player who doesn't care that much for structure, is what I mean. So him going to a team that were, you know, they've gone from the plan to no plan, um,
Yeah,
seemingly. So obviously, I would imagine the twins have left for non-gameplay reasons. That tends to be the case. Um, so you've got to get somebody who's as mercurial as Henny, and Fur is, if nothing else, mercurial. He is talented, but he is enigmatic. Um, you've got to get somebody really talented, and he fits in with their sort of laissez-faire style, shall we say? Like he's sort of culturally, he seems to fit in with what the team wants to do. He is talented. He was out of a team. To me, it makes perfect sense.
I hate it. I like
You
just
hate it,
I
really? I
hate
kind of like it. It seems quite fitting
no.
to me as a fur fan.
This is like a I hate that this is a viable move. Right. Like I hate that this move has happened at this time in which this is a thing. Right. I figured at this point Fur would have actually been signed to a team and not just floating around in free agency. Right.
Well,
I figured
I
at
think
this
I think one of the issues with Fur is I don't think he's confident speaking English, so it really limits the teams he can play for.
he could have played for Team One.
I mean, he could, yeah. But if you have Fur and Malbs on the same team, you kind of like there's a lot of aggression.
Okay. What's your problem with that?
Well, it's just that I don't have a problem with it, but I think the other members of the team might.
Hey, they could do the art, just run in, die, but they get all the information and just give
Yeah,
the information back.
so the
What are
important
what
part of that is the art. Art is one man. Mouths and Fur are two. You're gonna have two players getting
you
info.
get double the
You can have all the info in
information.
the world. If you're retaking a site 3v5, it doesn't fucking matter.
All right, let's hop back to Europe for a minute. Complexity. They exist.
Yeah.
Poison is off of complexity. Coldzera has come out and said that he will be evaluating his options when his 3 month contract comes up, which means he's not.
And and we
Yeah,
all know what that means.
that means he's leaving.
That means he's leaving, yeah.
That means he's leaving.
Like if somebody says
Um,
we'll see, you know it means no.
obviously to go to phase again. That's
That would be amusing. He's gonna join OO Nation.
God. No, I'm excited to see what complexity will bring. I think complexity will be fun when they figure
I
out their roster. We've been talking about right that complexity haven't played with a sub, not a sub in a really long time. That just it's been sub after sub after sub, just for like different things of like Config getting his wrist hurt, for Poison having to go have emergency surgery, for it's just it's one after the other, and it's just it would be nice for them to have a defined team for like 6 minutes because I think we have talked about this. Bleem is a very good IGL. Bleem is a very good fragger.
well, yeah, I think he's a very good fragger who is also an IGL, I would say.
Okay, we can go with that. But
Yeah.
I think that I legitimately think that if we give complexity some time with a team that exists, um, that they might do considerably better. I think the important thing for this is they should not pick up another Bulgarian opper, i.e., Cirque. I think that would be a poor decision.
If
Um,
they could pick up another Bulgarian Orpa, but it would have to be Red Star, he's actually pretty good. He's the Fiend Orpa, I think.
okay.
He's pretty decent. But they probably shouldn't do that. I wouldn't be surprised if they went in for OC. I mean, that to me makes the most sense. You go back to the sort of American roots, like Dallas Cowboy roots. Um, you pick up an American player. He's a player who is kind of stuck in Elo hell. I mean, Junior is similar, but like Junior obviously has this reputation now after the
Did
Furia thing that
did we talk about Junior's nickname from Fear for on
Senior.
trial?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Oh my god. I know that was like
Um,
months ago, but I feel like every time I have the opportunity to bring up the fact that Shake Zula started calling Junior Senior after Furia, just I feel like I have to bring it up every single time.
so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they went in for OC because I'm not sure who else you get. Maybe Farley or something, or who else even is? I mean, maybe you just get another rifler. Maybe they go for a Dupree or Magisk, or they go for B and
Well,
Tet or
they
something like that.
theoretically have two spots, right? The only
Yeah,
people that are like on this team are JKS, Blame.
that's it, right?
No, there's another person on this team. Hold on, hold on. Who's on
JKS
this
Blame.
team?
They've got Alu Cold Zero and
Who's the other person?
Esatag. They've got Esatag.
S a tag. S a tag.
Yeah, I forgot
Yeah,
about Esatag.
I
I
I,
keep
I
forgetting about Esatag going to complexity. Like it's quite a forgettable move. Like, it makes sense, but it's just like It makes too much sense. It's it's a bit boring. You know what I mean?
It was Rush. I was thinking Rush. That's okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Rush
get it.
left.
Um,
That's what I mean. They kind of need an American, otherwise they're just another European team.
yeah, that's a good
You got
point.
to get OC. I'm telling you, I got to keep shilling for OC because we need to see this guy on a good team because he's clearly too good for the region for like the level he's playing at.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a good chance that he's really undervalued. To get a player putting up numbers like that in Europe, I think maybe it's not more expensive than OC. Maybe picking up I mean, how much was Torzi? He was probably cheaper than OC. So maybe you find another player like that. But you're not going to be able to get Torzi, who's the sort of hot prospect. You're not going to be able to get Munzi. So maybe you look at that you go to the sort of tier 2, tier 3 and try and find a man 2. You try and find a Brokey, somebody like that. Or you do gamble on an American. But I guess if OC's buyout is pretty high, that might explain why he doesn't sort of leave, and maybe he doesn't want to go to Europe. But I would definitely look into that because I really want to see him at a better level. I've also heard apparently that Safe speaks English. Apparently he lived in the US for a while. He is a very interesting player, and if I'm Complexity, I would be asking Payne after the major, like, "Yo, how much for this guy?" Because Safe's clean, dude. He's really clean, and if you can get him in come January, a settled Complexity team, maybe if you keep Cold Zero as well, maybe you can help him acclimatize a little bit. If that's a worry, I don't know. Like, this guy's good, man. That is an option. I would look at Safe. I would look at OC. I would look maybe at Farley as a potential option, but I'm not 100% convinced on Farley. He's clearly good, but I don't know quite how good he is.
Mm-hmm. All right. I agree with everything you just said, by the way.
Yeah.
But now we need to get to a topic. We've waited a very long time to talk about this topic because
Yeah.
we started off season 2 of this podcast, right? With I can't believe we're talking about Hunden again. When is this ever
Yeah.
going to stop? And guess what? The question is, it's still not over
I don't
because
want to
more
talk
stuff
about
came
fucking
out
Hunden, dude.
and just
So it turns out that Hunden apparently tricked Nico into helping him.
which like we knew Hunden was a dick, right?
Yeah.
Off the bat. And this isn't helping his case.
No, I mean, if that is true, and it seems to be true, that he's tricked Nico into helping him and then tried to get him banned for helping him, it's very manipulative. It's really, really bad. That's like, it's like, you coerce somebody into doing something and then try and get them banned for doing it. It's like, I don't know. It's so bad. Like,
Just
somebody
like
sells you
why?
drugs and then reports you to the police after they get caught. It's like, snitches get stitches, bro. Everyone knows this.
Like I don't know why. Like there's so it seems like he found himself in a hole and just decided, you know what we have to do here? We need to dig deeper.
Yeah,
And at every move, he didn't go, "Oh, maybe I should figure something out." This is Hunden, by the way.
yeah.
Maybe I should figure something out. Maybe I should go and tell someone. No, I'm going to continue to dig myself deeper and deeper and deeper into this hole until I'm literally like trying to convince somebody else that everything is okay when I know it. Like it's just the most scummy thing.
And yet, after all that, the heroic players come out, do a mini speech thing. I don't know what
Hold
it
on.
was.
Can we talk about the set for this?
The JW's tweet, I think, pretty much sums it all up. If you haven't
Yep.
seen that, the one of the casting couch, yeah, that's fantastic. But they come out, do this speech, and incriminate themselves. It's so
Yeah, they
dumb,
were like,
bro.
"Yeah,
Just
we knew
don't
about
fucking
it."
say anything. Oh
Like
god.
they came out and were like, "Yeah, we knew about it." Like the first time, and then we told him not to do it again, and we didn't know that he did it again until everyone started like trying to murder our Twitter accounts with "Why did you cheat?"
Yeah,
And
I
like
I
I
think
feel bad because like they were talking about, I think it was Caden, and they was talking about like Tessus had talked to him and it was like, I can't go out for a night with my family because I'm afraid of being like walking into a bar or something and being called a and like being called a cheater and like stuff. And it was just like, it was rough to watch. I'd suggest you watch it if you watch it. Like, I'd suggest if you haven't watched it to take the time and watch it.
What I don't understand is if they knew he cheated, asked him not to, and he did it again,
Yeah,
why did you re-employ him when he got unbanned? That to me
I
is an admission of that is an admission of guilt. If you employ him after you tell him not to cheat and he cheats, you didn't you're not sticking to your own principles. Of course you're not. Because you're employing the guy who went against your will to cheat, quote unquote. So
yeah.
how fiercely did you tell him? Like if you knew, asked him not to, and he did it again, why are you re-employing him? Because you clearly don't believe it. So either them employing him is an act of desperation, incredibly stupid, or it's an admission of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go with the old never assume what was it? Never assume
Yeah,
malice in anything that could be considered stupidity. You can go with that and say it could just be completely idiotic that they rehired the guy who cheated against their will, and they always knew.
yeah.
If he cheated, you asked him not to, and then Hunden says to Tesses, "Please, can you boost me into this spot?" Oh yeah, no, of course. I'm sure there's nothing weird going on there. I'm sure Tesses had no idea what was happening. Come on, bro. Shit's so fucking annoying.
Yeah. All right.
It's so frustrating. It's just such it's so difficult to pass the truth from the lies, and I think that's the point. They've muddied the waters sufficiently to the point where anyone who wants to figure this out just can't be asked to dig through all the shit, and that's so in that sense they've won because I can't be asked to dig through this and
No.
point things out like that because
I think
it
I think
doesn't. It clearly doesn't make a difference.
I think everyone's at the same point as we are, of just like, we are tired of this story. It has been a year of like
Yeah,
40 updates of the story. Like, we get an update every single week of the story. Like, I don't want more updates of the story. We can just not do the story.
yeah. I've had enough. Had
Well,
enough of this dickhead.
speaking of having enough, we asked for some questions before we went live on the internet webs. Um, I think the big question we have to answer, and then if anyone has questions for us that's here live,
Yeah,
throw it in our Discord, and we'll answer them for the next 20-ish minutes because I have a
yeah.
hard out here. But so our important question today is, why do T-sided maps suck?
So I have a lot of thoughts on T-sided maps being bad. I think the game is inherently designed to be CT-sided. That's why the economy is the way it is. So if a map is T-sided, it completely sort of flips that on its head, and it isn't the same. It's not how it should be. Um, and I also think, importantly, that CT-sided maps improve, make a good in-game leader more important because T-sided rounds are harder to get, and therefore you actually have to be good at T side to get 5 or 6 rounds. And I think you get a better diversity of teams because good T sided team, when on a T sided map where every team gets 8 or 9 T sided rounds, good T sided teams don't really matter that much. Whereas if you're a good T sided team and all the maps are 9-6 and you get 8 T rounds, that's huge. That's really important. If teams normally get 90 rounds, you get 10 or 11. It's important, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not immediately game winning. It doesn't completely change the complexity of the game. Yeah. Whereas when the maps are CT sided, people like MSL, people like, I don't know, say Alexi B, that type of player, an in-game leader who isn't necessarily a great fragger but is a good strategist. becomes more important because T-sided rounds are harder to come by, and it makes. I also think T-sided rounds suck because they're worse to watch because there's fewer retakes. If you can't like retakes are some of the most like nail biting, nervous parts. Whereas like on Inferno, when it's a 3v3 retake, there's a smoke down, you just call it off because you can't do it.
Yeah.
On Dust 2, they get into the B site, they get one kill, the round's over. It's
Yeah,
pointless.
we talked about this earlier. It's just like Inferno is impossible to retake. It's just like if you're not already in the site, you just don't.
Yeah, it's horrible. And
It's
that to
terrible.
me removes a lot of the fun of watching Counter Strike when you don't have these like tense 2v2 retakes, 3v3 retakes. That's why Mirage is such a good map because people hate like it's kind of fashionable to hate on Mirage now, but the A site is like as retakeable as it is takeable, and that allows for CT sides to play in different ways. You can try and hold the site, you can play inside the site, or you can just play full retake, and it means that in a 4v4 you get like 4v4 3v3 retakes, and that you don't know which way it's going to go. And good post plant teams, good post plant AWPers, people like Oscar, who is like famously good at locking down post plants. They become more valuable. That becomes a more valuable skill, being good in a post plant. Teams who have organized post plants, unlike G2, that tilted me so much. People who have like organized post plants become like that's more important when A, there's more retakes, and B, it's actually harder to hold the site once you've taken it. And that's why I think CT sided maps tend to be better because it just opens up more. I don't know. I just think they're much better to watch. I think it makes much more sense.
I've got a question here of what is your dream team of players not at the major who you think would actually do well?
Dream team of players not at the major. I think immediately I would want Valde.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got to start picking from the OG guys. So it would be like Valde. I put OC in there as well.
Maybe OC. I mean, that might be a stretch. I think somebody like you might pick one of the Fnatic players. Like maybe you pick Alex as your in-game leader.
Okay, so Valde and Alex, definite, right? I'd agree with these, but the problem
I
is
think so.
like you start going down the list and it's like, what's the next best team that's not at the major? It's kind of
Yeah.
OG and like, so do we just take Flames?
Maybe you take Flames. I was trying to think of like I was trying to
I
go
mean,
for like a bigger variety. You know what I mean? Like
we could take Neofrag from Sinners.
he is really good. To be fair, Neofrag is really
Oh
good.
wait, Malbs.
There's
What are we
Flit
saying?
as well. Flit's pretty good.
Take Malbs.
Yeah. Anyone from Complexity. I mean, Blame F or something as well.
So basically, there is a good team. We just don't
Yeah,
know what it
maybe you
is.
take maybe something like Blame F,
Blame
Brolan,
Valde.
Blame F, Brolan, Valde, and then you look at you take maybe you take a Malbs and you take like maybe you take OC. I don't know, maybe Neofrag, something like that. It's quite difficult. I'm trying to think of other teams that aren't at the major, which is obviously more difficult than the teams that are at the major. But I'd be pretty happy with something like that. Maybe you take Neofrag, OC, Blame, Brolan, Valde. I think that's a really solid team.
I like that.
They'd be like top 8 at the major, I think.
Harry has put in our Discord. Harry's our social media manager. Config Alex Smooya Valde Flit.
Yeah, Flit's a really solid one as well.
And we forgot that config uses. I think config works really well too.
Yeah.
Um, I'd be remiss to just not throw the name Forest out there.
Yeah, that's true actually. Like,
Because
do you
he's
even
still
like
playing ridiculous counter
Forest is
strike.
still really fucking good, man. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. How is Forest still so bloody good, man? Like, Get Right dropped off at about 27.
Yeah,
Forest is
no,
like
just
probably
yeah,
better now than he was a few years ago. Obviously, he's not at his peak anymore, but he's better now than he was at the end of NIP. I think it's so annoying.
yeah.
He's one of those guys who would like, and PE, like he'd be, he's like the best football player. Like in PE, and then you do a different sport that none of you have ever played, and he's still the best at it. And then like on sports day, he has like the record for the 100 meters.
I have a friend who I took golfing for the first time. He used to play soccer. He has a count of people's bones he's broken because of soccer. He's a really good soccer player. Right? Took him golfing one day. He's never golfed in his life. He beat all of us. I've been
Oh,
golfing
what
for
a bastard! What
I've
a
been golfing for
bastard! You're not
years.
allowed to do that.
Right? All right.
I'd have hit him.
I had a question revolving around Rops to phase. I don't
Yeah,
want to answer it.
I don't want. Do I want Rops to phase? I don't. I don't want phase to be that good, but they also kind of. I also kind of think they are good anyway. So
I feel like
I don't
we've
know where
talked
else
about
Rops would end up going though. That's the thing. Like, where else does he even go?
here's the thing. I feel like we've talked about this enough, right? On Robs to phase is just adding more aimers to a team that their problem is not needing aimers.
Um, I mean, Rops is such an intelligent player that he isn't like. Obviously, mechanically, he's incredible, but he's a lot more than that. And I mean, if Olaf does want to retire, or
If Olaf
whatever,
wants to retire, then that's fine. I'm in my head. Olaf's not the first to go. We talked about this
I
last
think
week. That
I
if I
don't
was to make a
think,
move on phase, it's not Olaf first.
other than language issues, I don't think there's a single team in the world which isn't improved by adding Rops to almost any of the roles in that team.
Okay.
Like, he's so good, and he's so good at everything. Like, he can AWP. He's an incredible lurker. He's a lockdown CT player. You could make him entry, and I'm pretty sure he'd be good at it. Like, because he can do it. Like, the guy is absolutely unbelievable. He's ridiculously
Whoa.
intelligent and
There's
mechanically just
there's
obscene.
okay. There's been a move talked about in our in the Discord server. Taken as suggested minus Olaf plus Sanji.
You're like Sanji's biggest stan, so I'm pretty sure you'll be on board for this.
I'm very much on board for this.
Yeah, you're his biggest fan. You're a Stanji.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
like, I feel like it goes against FaZe Clan's DNA to not cut Olaf and put in another like ultra fragger. Like, you can't call yourself FaZe Clan and pick up players like Sanji. I'm sorry, you just can't. Like, you have to just pick up as many aim stars as possible. I personally think they should cut Carrigan and just sign just sign like
just no
sign
IGL.
Rops for
Just
Carrigan, like, and just say fuck it, like, we're FaZe Clan, like, what are you gonna do?
I, I
Yeah,
like it.
yeah, your strategies are great and all, but you have to run past Rops. Like, what are you gonna do?
All right. Merkio from our Discord asked regarding the recent patch from Valve expanding the plantable area of ancient bomb sites. Are we okay? Like, are we all right or against the weird pre-major shakeups?
Normally I'm pro change. Maybe with it being the first major in 2 years, maybe we don't change it. But then I guess there's something to be said for um great teams being adaptive.
Yeah.
Like, how good of a team were you really if small changes to a map and being able to drop grenades stops you being a top team? Like, were
Yeah.
you
No.
really that good? If now they can drop grenades, that ruins your entire game plan. You weren't that good.
I'm kind of in the same place. I think it's more of a quality of life portion for that map.
Yeah,
Right? I don't think it realistically changes a huge amount. I think the dropping nades thing changes more, but I think teams have already kind of figured out what they want to do with that. I mean, it's not
yeah,
it's not like that big of a thing. Um, like I think the easiest thing that teams can do with that is just at the beginning of the round, if you're buying one of each nade, buy an extra flash, toss it on the ground. That way, when people are rotating for a retake, then you can pick up an extra flash,
yeah.
which works out really well. Like I've got no problems with that. Or he
OG's
can.
use of HEs is pretty impressive, but other than
Yeah,
that, nothing's really happened.
there's been a hot take in Discord. Minus Carrigan and Carrigan becomes Astralis coach.
I'd be on board for that. Like, I actually think that's a pretty juicy move. I mean, for Astralis, it makes perfect sense, but I think Carrigan's stock is still pretty high. Like, he could probably play CS till he's 35 because somebody's gonna want Carrigan. Like, you're in, you know, say in 3 years, Carrigan, gets Steve Bruced and nobody wants him. You really think some like tier 3 Danish team isn't gonna go, we want Carrigan. We don't want you to frag. Like, in
We
three
just
years'
want
time,
to.
Carrigan will be to like Danish CS what Crystal is to like tier 3 like German teams. He will turn you from a tier 3 team to a tier 2 team, even if he's picking up like zero point 0.5 ratings every game.
No, I
Because
thought you were to say Oscar, but that the Crystal one works too.
yeah, like Crystal is a genius, but he's like not good enough to be a professional Counter Strike player with his hand. Like, he has the brain of a top Counter Strike player, but the hands are like a
Me.
level 7. I wouldn't go that far. He's got the hands of a level 8, but the brain of like one of the best players in the world. And Carrigan will always he will always be a leader. I think that's something. Like, Carrigan's obviously a decent in-game leader, obviously a very good one, but he's a very good leader of men. Like from an outsider perspective, at least it seems that way. Like, he's the sort of person
Yeah.
who will always keep his team motivated. That's what it seems to me, and I think that's like invaluable in a scene that has a lot of young adult testosterone filled men.
All right, we got one last question, then we're gonna get off for the day. Who do
Absolutely.
we have as the major winner?
The major winner.
Who's
It's
going up?
Navi or Vitality. Navi's the most likely, but I can kind of see like Zaiwu is like so obviously like it's like somebody hated Simple and just created in a lab like somebody to just piss Simple off. Like, he's beaten him to number 1 2 years in a row, and like Simple would unequivocally be the GOAT.
Yeah.
He would unequivocally be the greatest player in the world right now, and I think probably unequivocally be the GOAT if there wasn't somebody who was like as good as him for 2 years. Like, nobody else, I don't think, in history has come close to as dominant as Simple was,
Yeah.
except the French teenager who did it in his rookie year. Like,
Yeah.
do you understand how insane that is? And it makes Simple look worse because there was a teenager who was as good as him. Like, oh, was he really as good as Olaf? Yes, he was. He was. Like, he is. He's the best player of all time. Zoe was created in a lab purely to piss Simple off, and the like what would really top that off is on the major that like Simple is destined to win after 2 years. Like, they're the best team in the world. They're winning every tournament. Zaiwu like wins it and like does a
Yep.
Fortnite dance next to like in Simple's face or something.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think it's probably Vitality. I've toned down from a couple weeks ago where I said I thought like Gambit Heroic had this in the bag. No, I'm on the Vitality train now. I think we can agree that it's not Nip. Like, I'm serious. Like, I think we can both agree that it's not Nip. I think there's still a lot of issues with that team. Um,
Yeah,
for them to realistically be able to be major winners. To be fair, I think Vitality Navi is a coin flip, and I could definitely see Gambit making it
yeah,
to the finals. I just don't see him winning.
yeah. But
That's where I'm
hear
at.
me out. 2 years since the last major. It's the biggest major probably in CS:GO history. Zaiwu versus Simple in the final.
No, I'm agreeing.
Like, it's made for like it has to be Zaiwu versus Simple in the final. I don't see how it could be anything else. And
Yeah.
the other one like leaves as Baphomet with the other goat's head and his head and his hand.
So last thing we have to say, and then we're leaving. Harry just said in Discord, we all know we're getting Vitality Navi in the quarters.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But that's still the real final as far as I'm concerned. He also
Yeah,
said
like
that Carrigan is basically Carlo Ancelotti. I know you don't really care about football, but that is absolutely spot on. Like, I cannot describe to you how good a comparison that is. Like, really good.
I
Carlo
will do my
Ancelotti
research.
Carlo Ancelotti has won like loads of trophies, and he's like not an amazing tactician, but he will have great players that would like with massive egos, and he'll just get them all on the same page. He doesn't do anything amazing. He just plays them. He plays all of his best players, keeps them all happy, and they all play well. Like he just lets them sort of free flow, and that it just kind of works. Which is kind of what Carrigan is. Like he's not like an amazing tactician. He just keeps his players happy, and he just keeps them like playing it, like playing well. It sounds so simple, but it's really difficult to do.
All right. Thank you all for listening today, whether you're on Twitter Spaces or whether you're through Spotify in about a day or so. Make sure to follow us at ReadTLDR, at Logan Ramhap and at Aizyesque. We will see you all next week where we'll have some Swiss system to talk about.
Hell yeah.